a passionate instigator and dynamic problem solver. Dr. Kevin Ross Emery, the host of the Dr. Kevin Radio Show, will be taking you outside the box, behind the curtain, and identifying the load of BS we are fed every day. And now, Dr. Kevin.
Hello and welcome to the Dr. Kevin Show. I am the guest host tonight. I am Reverend Dr. Lori Powers Otto, and I am filling in for Dr. Kevin as he was unable to make it this evening. But we have a wonderful show for you. Before we get started, I do want to remind the audience that this is a live call-in show, and we invite you to call in with questions and comments. All we ask is that they're respectful. The call-in number is 202-570-7057, and we look forward to hearing from you. Tonight, my guest is Wendy Darling. Wendy is the co-founder of GTD, Go the Distance Consulting, and the Miraculous Living Institute. She's committed to you achieving your results with over 38 years of experience as a management and organizational development consultant, corporate influencer, relationship and transformational results expert, speaker, seminar facility, master healer, and coach. Her entire career has been dedicated to the decoding of what needs to happen to create results. She works with those who are going for it, but something is holding them back, causing unnecessary interference. Wendy blends her psychology, management, and organizational development experience with her unique healing gifts and processes into what is now the Miraculous Living Method, a comprehensive system that creates permanent change. The steps are simple, the results profound. Her clients finally achieve their desired results, having greater influence and impact in their lives. Wendy is a professional speaker, a #1 international best-selling author of The Miracle That Is Your Life. She has been featured on TV and radio, in Forbes, and other publications. Wendy's clients repeatedly refer to her as their personal fairy godmother for assisting them in turning their dreams into reality. Welcome, Wendy. I'm so happy to have you here.
Well, I'm happy to be here.
So, I guess my first question is, how in the world did you manage to accomplish all of this?
I know. Sometimes I listen to it and it almost makes me tired. Well, first of all, I'm getting ready to turn 70 in May. So I've been doing this for quite some time. And this is actually my 40th year since I started my own business, and I worked for several years prior to that. So it has evolved, just like many things.
Yes. So I know Dr. Kevin had told me that we were going to discuss your upcoming book, but I'd like to know a little bit more about everything you have going on, your companies, your consulting, how the Miraculous Living Method helps people. Can you tell me about some of that?
Sure. Well, first of all, early in my career, I was very traditional in many of the things that I did. I started out as a 6th grade teacher. I was dean of students for a program called Semester at Sea. And then I got involved in training and development and consulting very early in my career. Training and development way back then was really in infancy. But my life took a dramatic pivot in 1990. I was traveling, working. I was on contract with the Fortune 100 company. I was extremely, extremely ill, and I was extremely, extremely foolish because I still felt like I needed to get on that plane and go meet those people. I was living in Texas at the time, and I was needing to fly to L.A. So I went outside the Dallas airport and to get some fresh air. And unfortunately, I mentioned I had been really sick, and I passed out. And I fell over a ledge, and I fell approximately 25 feet.
Oh, my goodness.
So the good news and the bad news is I landed on my right leg. So my right leg was shattered, and I had multiple surgeries to repair it, and I didn't know if I was going to be able to even walk again for about 11 months, which I do. I also had some back fractures, and it was a period of time after that I was also diagnosed with a traumatic brain injury, because way back then, traumatic brain injuries were not top of the food chain. We just didn't know that much about it. Plus, I was having so much trauma, both from the accident and my personal life. My former husband, around week 4 of being in the hospital the first time, came with suitcases packed, saying he no longer wished to be married. And even though I take full responsibility for my portion of our marriage that contributed to that, you might agree that the timing wasn't exactly optimal.
No.
And if that was not enough, when we ultimately went to court, I didn't mention, but he happened to be an attorney, and he was awarded full custody of our son, who was only 4.5 at that time. And that's really when I broke into a whole lot of pieces. And it was my mom who suggested that I learn how to meditate. And at that time, quieting my mind was a complete oxymoron. I had an extremely overactive mind. But desperate times, right? It's like, okay, right. I'll try this thing called meditation. And I went to somebody. There was a small group of us that met in this person's home. And, I was practicing, and I remember talking with Michael, who was the person teaching us. And, I said to him, every time I almost feel like my mind is going to relax, I get this urge to sing. And he's like, well, sing. And I started laughing. And I said, no, you don't understand. I actually have people in my life that request I not do that. And so he just looked at me and he said, Wendy, just go sing. So I went back to my little place in the little corner of the house. And I got into that space, and I allowed for what was to come out of me was this melodic kind of singing. And for the first time in a very long time, my mind actually began to relax, and my body began to relax. And I was living in Dallas at that time, and I had this big walk-in closet. What they say is true. There are things that are pretty big in Dallas. And and I was and by the way, I was really in the closet with all of this as well. Because remember, I just told you, I was living a very traditional life. This was not part of my world at all. And so little by little, though, I started to recognize that there was more to this than I was aware of. And so I started to experiment. I started to explore more. And ultimately and eventually, I started cultivating more gifts, more ideas, more material that has now become the Miraculous Living Method. There was the time that, once again, I was back at this person's house, and I'm walking by somebody that was in this small group of ours, and out of my mouth I say, oh, you have a block around your heart. And I'm thinking to myself, well, where did that come from? It wasn't like, oh, and then what was so interesting, the instructor's son, who was like maybe 17 or 18 at that time, I hear him behind me, and he's telling the same person. This kid was like really extremely intuitive and gifted. I hear him saying, hey, you've got a block around your heart. And I'm thinking, what has happened to me? So I'm now able to see energy. I'm able to sense it. I can see it whether you're sitting right in front of me or if you're sitting at home in Australia. It doesn't matter. I close my eyes and I see you. Please don't ask me how this happens because I don't know. And the truth of the matter is, of course, now, I don't really care, but it's been such a gift. And so the Miraculous Living Method has been birthed out of this experience where I can find anything. I can see it, I can know it, I can feel it. I have a whole system where I know where you are stuck, where you're out of alignment, whatever is interfering. And it's basically a 5-part system. And one of the things that really sets me apart from a lot of practitioners who do release work is that one portion of my system, we literally do what I refer to as brain training. We actually work with making sure that the neural pathways and the thoughts that can best support you in whatever it is that you want to be experiencing is working for you as opposed to against you. So one part is my sound healing work that I do. Another part is a little bit further down the road, I received transformational healing cards that also hold a certain energy in each of the designs. And when you combine the sound healing with the cards, it creates a very unique circuitry. And then either I'm guided to give you statements or affirmations, but we also create what I refer to as scenarios, the life you are creating, the life you will be living soon. And it just brings everything into full alignment, and it allows you to dial up your intuition, know what steps you need to take. We dial up your magnetizer and your attraction factor. For those that want to make more money, we raise your financial set point. We open you up to receive more. Every single person that I have ever worked with is restricted in their ability to receive. So I work with people for their business, with their business. I still have hardcore nuts and bolts business sense, but I combine it with this other, and it just allows businesses to grow much more easily and organically. I assist singles to attract love. I've helped couples replenish their relationships, people with some health challenges. So I get to have a lot of fun.
Awesome. Wow, that's magnificent. I have to say the first thing that strikes me is how incredibly brave you were to go from having that horrible accident that could have killed you to your marriage ending to losing custody of your beloved child. Most people would have just fallen down the rabbit hole and stayed there. But you took the
Well, I don't want to give the complete wrong impression because there were many days, possibly if we add it all up, weeks, whatever. It was the most challenging time, to say the least. But what I'm grateful for is I was just on the itty-bitty early cusp of waking up more, opening my own heart more. And there was a knowing that I had, even when I was in the hospital the first time. I remember saying to somebody, this, I probably didn't say it quite this way, but I certainly hope that this is going to make a good story someday. Or I probably even said it in the affirmative. This is positioned to make a great story someday. And so there was a part of me, I have never, nor do anybody that knows me or works with me, I believe so strongly that if you have a desire in your heart, it is your truth. And that's our job. I believe that these desires are put into us, and just like a carrot dangling in front of us, has us grow and evolve to really make our special mark and contribution. And that, yes, there are some of us that, I don't know what I signed up for, but there are many of us that really went through the poopers to be able to offer our gifts in a unique way with an abundance of compassion.
Yes, and yeah, just yes is all I can say to that, because I mean, like I said, you could have easily decided to go another way, and I think the world is grateful that you chose not to, that you realized that this was the most horrible thing ever that could happen to you, but there was some good that would come out of it eventually.
Yeah, and I need to add also that things ultimately did work out with my son. You know, I was still able to see him very part-time. And by now remember this, he was only 4.5. And by his senior year in high school, he began to live with me full-time.
Wonderful.
But he was a trooper. You know, knowing what I know today, believing what I believe today, he apparently chose us as well for his life lessons. And that is possibly one of the ways that I was able to rationalize and find some level of peace. But I will say my heart was not completely healed until the day that he moved in full time.
Oh, yes, that's beautiful. I mean, that is well said. I don't imagine many people can say to you, well, you don't understand, because you do. You get it.
I do. And I think that's one of my driving forces. I really am one of those people. First of all, I became a sponge to learn. It's like, how do I dig out of this hole? I even remember having a conversation with God saying, listen, I promise I will pay this forward. Please help me. You help me dig out of this hole, I will pay it forward. I promise. And because nobody should have to suffer like this. And I am one of those people. I cannot stand anybody suffering in pain of any kind. And you know, let's face it, most people don't come to me because their lives are perfect. You know, something is wanting to shift, or they've reached a certain point maybe in their business and they can't get past a certain level of growth, or whatever it is. And so I think that's even why, despite I never asked for it, I'm still a little shy about it, but I think that's why so many of my clients have dubbed me their fairy godmother. I don't really think I'm a fairy godmother. Sometimes I guess I could feel like one, because that's my dream is helping others fulfill theirs.
That sounds mean for going into our first break. We will continue our conversation with Wendy Darling right after the break.
Conscious media for conscious minds. OMTimes. Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of OMTimes magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going On? My passion is sifting through information, research, and innovations from new thought teachers, speakers, and researchers, pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics, and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
Coping-19, brought to you by CDC and the Ad Council.
If you're feeling increasingly lonely right now, you're not alone. It's totally normal. Even though we may not be able to get together in person, connecting virtually with friends and family still gives you a chance to interact with people and may help raise your spirits. Join a virtual book club, set up group text chats, or online video coffee breaks with coworkers.
Find more self-care and coping tips at coping-19.org.
Welcome back. Welcome back to the Dr. Kevin Show. I am the guest host tonight. My name is Reverend Dr. Lori Powers Otto. And I want to again remind our listeners that this is a live call-in show, and we encourage you to call in and ask Wendy questions about all her amazingness. And that call-in number is 202-570-7057. Wendy, thank you so much for everything that you shared with us so far. And I don't know, I think calling you their fairy godmother sounds pretty accurate from what I know about you.
I know. It just kept, honestly, it has kept following me. And finally I said, okay, fine. I surrender. There could be a lot worse adjectives or names to be called.
Yes, that's a very nice one. So I wanted to ask you about your book, The Miracle That Is Your Life. Can you tell me about that?
Sure. Well, The Miracle That Is Your Life is my first book, and I think that was published maybe 5 or 6 years ago. And that's one of my basic first books. My new book that's coming out probably early May, because May's my birthday month, is called Create Your Miraculous Life. And the subtitle is It's Never Too Late. Oh. And I've had this feeling of the theme of it's never too late for a while. And because, first of all, I mentioned May is my birthday month, and I'm turning 70. It actually came out a little bit easier this time when I just said that. I find it rather amazing that I'm actually going to be 70. And so, and because of what we have gone through this past year with our global pandemic, most lives have been impacted in a variety of ways, some more challenging than others. And I even had to really dig deep to write this book, because at the time my life was feeling very unmiraculous. I was feeling led, first of all, to go into more of a quieter space, which happens to me from time to time to go in. And that was probably to help percolate the book. And also, in full disclosure, my son went through a horrific health crisis last year. And so it was actually quite interesting, because I was guided to just slow down a little bit. My business was slowing some, which happens. And also my guidance was, no, don't try to generate more. It was like keeping me in a holding pattern. And I've learned to trust that. It's kind of like, really? But the gift of that was I was more available to be with my son and support him during his health issues and recovery. And so, I'm cautiously optimistic he really seems to be doing better. And so here I was. I started writing the book more from the theme, of it's never too late. But here I was, interestingly enough, the miracle lady, and I'll be happy to share how that even happened, because I promise you, if you would ask me who I want to be when I grow up, that was never it. It never, ever came out of my mouth. And so I really had to dig deep. And it was perfect because I saw the timing was so ripe, because all too often when we have challenges, we tend to diminish our dreams. There could be more of a tendency to get in survival mode or worry, anxiety, fear, all of that. And I wanted to provide something for people to be able to be not just inspired, but to give you ideas and suggestions of what you can do so that you can give yourself a boost and know, as I already mentioned, that if you have a desire in your heart, it is your truth. And so people like me help you close that gap from going from a desire to turning it into a reality. And so that's how this book got birthed. Now, if I could also mention, the reason I got into this miracle business really came out of my first book. My best friend is Robin Simons, and she also happens to be my publisher. And she has a wonderful process. We sat down, and she really helped me with my first book, kind of pull out the information and help me organize it in a way that I was able to sit down. And I actually wrote my first book part-time in just a little under 5 weeks. This book took a whole lot longer. And so we got to the place in our conversation where she's like, well, what do you think you want to call this book? And I found myself sharing the story I'm about to share with you. And I was raised Jewish. And even though I do not consider myself religious today, I still hold some of the cultural aspects of being Jewish. But at that time, I wanted to honor the tradition of providing my son with a Hebrew name. And in Judaism, you typically give the name of somebody who is deceased. Well, my father had recently passed away before Adam, my son, was born. His Hebrew name happened to be Nissan. And Nissan in Hebrew translates to miracle. But it gets better. So then, my former husband's grandfather also had passed away. His name was Charles. And again, in Hebrew, that is Chaim. And Chaim translates to life. We gave my son the Hebrew name of Nissan Chaim, which translates to the miracle of life. And the rabbi and I had that conversation. Even today, as I share this with you, my whole body just kind of lights up, because even though I knew technically how it happened that I was able to make a baby, when I held him for the first time, I just couldn't stop staring at him. And just my brain was like, how did this happen? It's just so miraculous. So to have his Hebrew name be that, and I have to say that I love now being in the, quote, miracle business, because first of all, it helps me honor my father, who I dearly love, still feel connected with him today. It allows me to honor my son, who I adore, and it allows me to instill not just the hope, but turning those dreams and desires into reality. I kind of like that, because there's a quote that I found that Albert Einstein said. And Albert Einstein said, there are two ways to look at life. Either that nothing in life is a miracle, or everything in life is a miracle.
One of my favorite quotes. I love that quote. And I love that it means something to you. I love the way you came up with your son's name and everything. That's amazing.
Thanks. Yeah, it's worked out pretty good so far.
Yeah. So I have to go back. So what did you want to be when you grew up?
Initially, there were a lot of things. When I was really, really young, if you saw movies, family movie pictures of me, I was always dancing and singing and performing. Apparently, when I was really young, a talent scout, approached my parents, and they wanted me to be in the movies, kind of like a Shirley Temple, a child star, and my parents wouldn't allow for it. When they told me that, at some point I went, "Are you kidding me?" So, okay. But I've always wanted to help people. As I mentioned, I'm 69. There were not right in the early start of my career, there weren't as many options for women. I was one of the trailblazers. There you could be a teacher, you could be a nurse, and fortunately, I had parents that said you can be anything you want, and I believed them. And so that's why I just got drawn to business, and I've been so blessed with the experiences that I've had. I've worked with companies of all different sizes and shapes and industries. And my lane, my real expertise has always been more in the management, leadership, executive development realm. I've always looked, I believe, every group, every organization, every team has the perfect recipe for success. And my job is to help pull out that genius and work with it a way that we find the solutions that are needed so that they can be more productive and profitable. But I always believe it's right there. And when I was young, my nickname was Nose, not because I have a big one, but I've always been very nosy. I've been curious. So I've always been somebody that loves to ask questions. And I think even with my first assignment that I had as a consultant was with a group of computer programmers. I had never even looked at a computer, much less touched one. And here I'm working with computer programmers, and I'm seeing my career end before it begins. But it was my curiosity of asking questions, and we found a big solution. I remember within 20 minutes of us starting to work together. And I'm leaving that first meeting going, I like this consulting thing, because I recognized I didn't have to be an expert. My job was to pull out their expertise and help them work with it to find their solutions.
Oh, I love that. I love that, because a lot of people think that you have to know everything about everything before you can help somebody, and that is so not true.
Mm-mm.
That's
have right.
Yeah, I think the ability to help someone else bring out their greatness and their knowledge is the gift, not the do this my way or whatever. My way is the only way. That's hogwash. You're bringing out their gift.
Absolutely. Every person I've ever worked with, that is one of the points that I emphasize. I am not asking anyone to come into my world. I come into yours. It's unique enough, me living my own life. That's good enough. But yes, and that's why, all my programs have always been customized for organizations. That's even why, even though I have certain structures in place when I work with my private clients or even in groups, I'm still coming into your world. I like to look at what you need, what you want, and we go to work at closing that gap.
That is spectacular. When I do my own coaching clients, I come at that similar perspective. I know a lot of coaches that have set in stone programs, and if you don't do this, they kick you out. But I don't do that, and you don't do that. We customize each one for who we're working with. And how can it be any other way? We're all unique. Yes. Just like our thumbprint. In fact, one of my former business names was Thumbprints International because I believed then and still now that there is no other person exactly like you. And that is our job in life, to discover what our gifts and our uniquenesses are, cultivate them in a way that we're able to make our mark and contribution. Yes, absolutely. I love that. Because that's the only way it really works. Right?
I agree.
Yes. Yes, I think that's fantastic. Now, so you work with businesses, but you also work with individuals? Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, I do more of the personal growth or working with entrepreneurs today than I do large companies, especially this past year. Yes. I think I mentioned I shouldn't say, it's kind of like saying one of your children's your favorite. But I work with singles to attract love, which is so much fun. I assist entrepreneurs to grow their business. I have a process called More Money Now, and it allows me to find where your financial set point is, and we can raise it. And then we open up what I refer to as your receiver, because every single person I've ever worked with is restricted in some way to receiving. And then we do other things. My terminology, we dial up your magnetizer, your ability to magnetize things to you, your attraction factor, making you more irresistible, and other things as well, so that you are in harmony and you are in a position to not only send out to the world, hey, I'm here, but to also allow you to connect to those you can best serve even more easily.
Oh, that is amazing. That sounds wonderful. Oh, we are coming on to our second break. I look forward to you coming back and joining us right after this break.
The Real Conscious Connection. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Vox Novus, the new voice. Vox Novus, the new dimension. Vox Novus, thought and movement leaders who will share from their experience and offer tools to help us navigate our rapidly changing world. My name is Victor Furman. Join me every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio for Vox Novus, the new voice.
If I could be you,
and you could be me,
for just 1 hour.
If you could find a way
to get inside
each other's mind.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
We've all felt left out. And for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Welcome back to the Dr. Kevin Show. I am Reverend Dr. Lori Powers-Otto, and I'm filling in for Dr. Kevin tonight. And tonight we are talking to Wendy Darling, who is probably one of the most amazing people I've ever met, even though we haven't met in person yet. We'll work on that. Before we continue, Wendy, I have neglected to have you tell them how they can get in touch with you.
Sure. Probably the easiest way is either go to my website, wendydarling.com. There's a place that you can schedule what I refer to as a heart-to-heart with me. Also, my email is wendy@wendydarling.com. Now, I'm going to encourage your listeners, if you don't mind, to go to my website and at least, sign up to be on my email list if you have an interest in receiving notification when my book comes out. Because I will say we're doing a very special couple of days offer, and I'm actually looking at just offering my book for free because it's more important for me to get the word out than anything else. So if you want to be put on my email list, you can go to wendydarling.com, and I believe there's a place that you're able, I think you have to click on the audio recording that I have to get on my list. I'm going to have to look at that more closely. It's been a while. And if you have an issue, just reach out to me directly, wendy@wendydarling.com.
Wonderful, wonderful. I'm going to definitely go sign up on your website, and I will do that right after the call.
Oh, that's great.
And I do encourage all the listeners out there to also do so. Who doesn't want to find out what's holding them back from being the best they can be, and who doesn't want this book that have coming out? Tell them again the name of your book.
Yes, it's called Create Your Miraculous Life. It's never too late.
I love that. I love that. I say that to my mother all the time, and she doesn't listen. I might have to get her a copy of your book.
That's cute.
She keeps telling me she's too old for anything these days, but that's okay.
How old is your mom?
She's 86.
Oh, sweet. Nah, she's not too old.
No, that's what I keep telling her. So, all right. Oh, I apologize. I just drew a blank on what my next question was. Where was I going? I don't know. So we'll just skip past whatever that was and move along.
Okay.
So like I said, I want to encourage all the listeners to follow through with this, because I know every single person out there could use to know where their blocks are. Not, because it's not just about money, but about any kind of attracting, correct?
Absolutely. And the thing that's different also about me is that you do not have to contemplate your navel, trying to figure out what happened, when it happened, all of that. The process itself takes care of it. We create the life you want to be living, and the process then melts away the undercurrent that has been interfering from your past, impacting your ability to actually move forward and live that life for whatever that is.
So So things from all the way from your childhood could be, or even from previous lives. I know we have a lot of people talk about how previous lives affect this life. I don't know if you believe in that. Mm-hmm. But I know that people don't realize that it can be, it's almost always subconscious, and you don't realize it could be something you learned as a child or, while you were growing up that is causing the blockage. Is that correct?
Absolutely. The evolution of personal growth has really changed over the years. When I was in graduate school, it was all talk therapy. We were trying to figure out what was happening, why it happened, and all of that. And it still serves a certain purpose. But we can facilitate change so much easier and faster today than ever before. And I don't remember now how many years ago it was when I had the thought, what if we're looking in the wrong direction? Because most of the time we're looking in the past. What experience happened? And yes, everything that holds us back is the stories that we made up when we had certain experiences. Some had more emotional charge to them than others, but when you have a traumatic experience or an emotional experience, you also continue, your brain keeps looking. It's like these little file cabinets are in our brains, and you have something that looks, smells, or, sounds like something familiar. Well, it goes into that file cabinet, and that's how we create neural pathways. And so these are just automatic thoughts. And the good news, bad news, is we have about 60,000 thoughts a day. The bad news is that the majority of those 60,000 are the same friggin' thoughts that you had yesterday. And the even worse news is the majority of those thoughts are in what is referred to as your subconscious programming, meaning you're not even aware that all these conversations are going on. And so that's why, common example, you're going to drop those 10 pounds that you've put on this last year, right? And so you create a plan. It's like, I'm going to do this. You know that you're going to eat a certain way. You're going to get out and you're going to exercise a little more. You're going to drink. You get the general idea.
Yep.
Well, by 4 o'clock, the potato chips or the dark chocolate or the something's calling you, and suddenly you're finding yourself derailed. That is because there is something within you that doesn't really believe you can do it. And it does stem from your past. But getting back to what I was initially saying is I had the thought, what if we're looking in the wrong direction? Because at this point, I was already aware much more because of my brain injury. I'd studied a lot about how the mind works and the brain works because I was really working at healing my brain. And the more we think something, the more our mind makes sure to make us right. So if you have a thought using the same example, it's too hard to release this weight, you're going to find yourself taking action that supports that belief. However, in my system, my process, we create the life you want to be living, and we can wash away the undercurrent that has previously been interfering. So that's why I look forward and deal with you in present time of what steps are you needing to take. We also dial up your intuition so that even that knowing or guidance is working, it's got your back and your front and all points in between. And you're able to navigate so much more easily. Suddenly you find, I'm not even thinking about eating blah, blah, blah. Or you're saying, gosh, I really, where I live in Southern California and we still have closed gyms. They might be starting to open up a little bit. I'm not sure yet. But, suddenly you're going, I just have to get out and get a walk. Maybe you start getting thirsty, whereas before you're not. And the same with your work. You're finding yourself really clear. I definitely want to do this program. I definitely want to find this kind of job. Whatever it is becomes clearer and easier to take those steps. It doesn't mean every step is going to be easy, but you'll know you need to take it and you will put more effort into it, or that's something that we will talk about with my private clients, and I just tweak them a little bit and they're bloop, they're off and running again. So it's been a benefit to learn the power of the mind, but it's become even more critical to honor the wisdom of the heart. And I actually believe that we are moving into an era of heart-smart living, because I actually believe that's where the true brain exists. When we follow our heart and we get our mind to cooperate and become best friends with the heart, that's when the real magic happens.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I love that your program is going forward, not keeping people mired in the past. I love that. You recognize the past, but you're moving forward. You're looking forward. You're creating the life they want to live or to experience. And I just think that's such a refreshing approach. I mean, we all see programs left, right, and center that offer all these miracle cures immediately, but the vast majority of them are ineffective because they're not looking forward, or they're not in the present at all, and they're not looking forward, which I think is one of the beautiful things about your program, is you're a full approach. You're not just here, read this book and your life's going to be, magnificent.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, it's the trajectory shifts, and because you don't want to keep. The reason I like the approach of pointing the target forward is if we don't do that, there's the tendency, which I caught myself in as well, of always looking for what's wrong and what needs to be fixed. So your mind's always on the hunt for what's wrong and what needs to be fixed, as opposed to, what are we creating? How am I living today? What's my next step in reaching my target? And it creates a very different mindset, and it allows your mind to support you actually more easily.
Okay. Yeah, that makes total sense. I like that. That's awesome. So I know we only have a few minutes left. Do you have any last words of wisdom you want to say? And can you tell people how to get in touch with you?
Sure. First of all, to just get on my list so that you will be notified when my book is released, go to wendydarling.com, and there's a place that you can sign up to get on my mailing list. If you have an interest in speaking to me further about how I might be able to assist you, you can either find a time through my scheduler at wendydarling.com/schedule, or you can email me, wendy@wendydarling.com. And one of the things that I am offering your listeners today is I put together what I'm calling your Miraculous Journey Jumpstart. It gives you a boost, and I'm offering a lot for a much smaller amount. And what is involved is a 90-minute session with me personally. I will read your energy. I'll see where your financial set point and all those other things that I was mentioning. I will actually provide a healing for you and getting you in alignment. And I will give you my process and teach you how to use it so that you can move forward with your business and life.
Wow, that's very generous. Thank you. That's wonderful. I think everybody would be foolish not to take advantage of this.
Yeah, and they need to, and if you are interested in that, you need to email me, wendy@wendydarling.com. And I will say, I know we're live right now, but I'm getting ready to move in just a few days, so if I don't respond quickly, that's why. It's going to be a little busy around here. I have one more speaking engagement tomorrow, and then it's time to wrap things up at this house and get ready to move to the next one.
Oh, an exciting new chapter. I love it. Oh, and that is our time. Thank you, Wendy Darling, for a wonderful show. I enjoyed speaking with you, and we ask you all to tune in next Thursday for the Dr. Kevin Show. Thank you.